front. Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the July 6th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory, upon which we gather with gratitude. Thank you. We're going to get into the agenda in just a second, folks. I just want to do a quick shout out, rather casual attire today. It's this weekend we had two major events down in our community park, and I have to give a shout out to the organizers. So we had the Beer Fest on Saturday, and we had a Summer Dreaming Parksville car show and car and bike show yesterday, Sunday in the park, which I was a participant in. And I just want to say it was an amazing event. We had many collaborators from within our community, including the PDBA were there anyways, offering their support, and they for the rest of the weekend. The PDBA were helpful in having a successful car show event, as well as the McMillan Art Gallery. Jennifer Bates was there as well, helping out with her singing abilities and her band, the Apollos. It made it a really great day down in the park, and there's no incidents, and I've talked to staff since, and everything went according to plan. So it was just another great event happening in Parksville. And just to let you know that our staff have done an amazing job in making the park safe and available for all the users type of thing, and accessible as well. So another one coming up this weekend is a little thing called Beach Fest. Will be starting this weekend as well. So we're into our summer season here, folks, and so we're all pretty busy. So thank you for being part of our community and being helpful in supporting these many events that we have. It's great to see a turnout like this for our events here as well. I'm very pleased. Thank you so much. So, Council, up front, we have our consent agenda going on. We have the minutes of the Council meeting held June 15th, 2026, as well as the approval of the Council meeting agenda. Do I move or second or further recommendations? Moved by Councillor Grens, seconded by Councillor Gull. Any errors, omissions, or changes? Councillor Grens, go ahead, sir. Just one addition, if I may, on the agenda is if I could do a report on the World Biodiversity Forum that I attended in Davos. You would like to do that? Can we? During the liaison report 7B. That would be great. We'd be happy to include that. Okay. Thank you. And the only other thing I want to mention is that on the agenda items, for those in the audience, I'll do it specifically here. We're going to let the delegation from Waterfront Properties regarding the Greig Road application. That gentleman will be doing his delegation presentation right after the fire chief presentation here. And we're going to move up the applicant's follow-up report, the zoning amendment application from item E on the agenda. We're going to move it up to right after the fire chief's report.
After the delegation. So the first report.
Okay, yeah, that'll make it even easier. Okay, after the delegation, we'll take care of the delegations, okay. And then Greig Road will come up as item 3C or 3B. So we're just moving that up just so in case you want to leave and go somewhere else. Go ahead, Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you. Through you to staff. Does this need to be a formal vote on the amendment of the agenda here? Yeah.
Yes, we would do it as when you're accepting the agenda. So we would amend item E, switching to A, and the rest being renamed accordingly.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. So for the amendment, yeah, I propose it. You seconded, Councillor Gore. All those in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. Great. Okay, we have one presentation today and a delegation later, but our first presentation is from Fire Chief Norris regarding a presentation of the 25-year British Columbia Long Service Bar. Presentation from the British Columbia Long Service Bar to Lieutenant Richard Riedel in recognition of 25 years of outstanding service. Chief Norris, if you could come up front, you can right in front of the desk here, I think would be appropriate. And Lieutenant Riedel, if you'd come forward too, please.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to recognize our this afternoon. Today. No. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mayor and Council today for the opportunity to recognize our members. Today, we have one member being recognized for the BC Long Service 25-year award. Today, Lieutenant Richard Riddell is being recognized on behalf of the Fire Commissioner in the province of British Columbia. Richard's been a member with the Parksville Fire Rescue Department since October 15th, 2013. So 13 years now, just about 13 years. However, he got his start just up the road in Coombs Hilliers, where he served from October 1st, 2000 to March 21st, 2011, 10 and a half years. After that, he served our neighboring department, Arrington Volunteer Fire Department, from 2011 to 2013, an additional 2.25 years. Richard has brought a wealth of fire service and life experience to our department and is one of our company officers. His dedication to training our members and sharing his experience, his ability to get things done on the fire ground, and his participation in many, if not all, facets of the fire service is a credit to our department and our community. We're fortunate to benefit from his membership. It's my pleasure, along with Mayor O'Brien at this time, to present Richard with his 25-year BC Fire Service Long Service Medal.
Thank you so much. And the next we have our delegation. We have one delegation today from Waterfront Properties Corporation, the zoning amendment application at 1465 Greig Road. We have a presentation from Ken Williams, who's here today with his lovely wife, of Waterfront Properties Corp. Regarding the zoning amendment application at 1465 Greig Road. Mr. Williams, if you'd like to come up to the podium there and then just push the little button on the left and it'll go green on you and hopefully we can hear you. Like you've done this before.
Is that it? There
Yeah.
we go.
Yes, you're loud and clear, Ken.
Okay.
You have
great.
10 minutes for your presentation, Mr. Williams. If you'd just like to jump in, go right ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just by way of introduction again, my name is Ken Williams and I'm the president of Waterfront Properties Corp. Thank you for having me back before council. I will be brief with my comments. Since our last delegation, we held a public open house. The message was clear. This community deeply values the Englishman River. We listened, and this further revision to our application reflects that. It is the third revision of this application since 2023, each shaped by feedback received. The unit count now drops from 405 to 330, with all apartment-style units removed entirely. What remains is ground-orientated multiplex and townhouses only, true missing middle housing. Density falls from the OCP prescribed 25 units per hectare to 20.3, a direct response to what we heard. Just as important as the unit count is where these units are to be located. By concentrating development on a defined portion of the site, we're able to preserve the remaining 105 acres as one contiguous conservation area rather than a fragmented patchwork under scattered development. The provincial minimum would allow development close enough to the river to skip a stone across it. We're proposing a minimum of 277 meter setback, nearly 3 football fields, 9 times the minimum provincial requirement. On water availability, The recent KWL report confirms supply is available for current OCP plan development in the coming years. I would point out that this development will be undertaken in phases, likely over 10+ years. It is not a large single apartment style building or series of apartment style buildings that could bring up to 100 or more units to the system all at once. The water issue is one that the city will have to address in the coming years as the city grows. We are setting a precedent by committing to fund our share of growth towards whatever ultimate program is adopted to expand water storage capacity. As development proceeds, we're contributing $500,000 index for inflation towards the city's water infrastructure program. In addition, each phase will pay whatever development cost charges are in place at that time, including any new charges introduced for water infrastructure. Our contribution grows in step with our impact on the system. We strongly believe our proposal has great benefits to the residents of Parksville as a whole. Approve this rezoning and Parksville gains missing middle housing for both current and future residents as the city continues to grow, sensible density, and 105 acres protected permanently and allowing public access at no ongoing cost to the city. Reject it, and the land reverts to its existing zoning with no conservation or public access guaranteed. What we are seeking is not a typical rezoning with minimal community benefits. This is a one-time opportunity to protect this stretch of the Englishman River in a meaningful way, converting private land to BC Parks Foundation land inventory. We ask council to support this application. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks very much, Ken. I appreciate that. I have to just ask a question from our Director of Planning, Mr. Russell. This contribution of 105 acres it's going to be going to the BC Parks Foundation as an ecological gift. Has the City of Parksville received anything of this magnitude in the past, or have we had any other bequeathals of this nature?
If I may, Mayor, the only two that I'm aware of, and they were certainly of a smaller scale, would be the Parksville Community Park.
Right.
Was the part of the, I think, a women's auxiliary, raised funds for that. And the other was Marks Nature Park, which was from the Marks family.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and they're both very well utilized piece of property in our city. So I'm appreciative for that. So this is, Ken, I have to say that this is a huge contribution as an ecological gift to be managed by the BC Parks Foundation. So that is wonderful. Thank you for that consideration. It's most appreciated. Also, I wanted to discuss the zoning for the change down to, it will turn into 330 units of fourplexes, townhouses, and multi-use, that missing middle that we asked for. So thank you for listening to us, because we've had a number of companies that have relocated or have located in our area, and their employees are looking for a place to live, and they can't afford that single family dwelling notch, which is over $1 million right now. And so providing housing for this missing middle is going to give their employees places that they can live and thrive and work in Parksville. So thank you for listening to that. Just to put it in easier terms, though, as far as scale goes, if there were fourplexes that they're proposed, we're looking at 330 divided by 4 quickly is we're looking at 105 buildings. I think no, sorry, it's 80 buildings. I don't have my calculator here. 84 buildings is what it would be, considering that there are fourplexes. So it's, as we're saying, it's 330 units, but it's going to be broken into the actual buildings are going to be 84 buildings in a fourplex nature. So
Maximum.
It's not actually 330 single units taking care of that space. So it's what they call in the business here is better land utilization, and is more efficient anyways. So thank you for that. Then there is a covenant protected on that property that you're donating, and so that will stay this way forever. Also, I want to make mention that the developer has pointed out that they will be changing the traffic safe for the traffic issues that have been brought up. The traffic safety interchange that is being upgraded in 19A and Tuan Road at the developer's cost. Also, Ken hasn't mentioned it, but he's also contributing to an amenity charge, a voluntary charge anyways, for the fire department for the relocation to the our department fire department training tower that we have. To have that, he's contributing $50,000 to that as a voluntary contribution to the fire department, as well as he's providing servicing connection at the fire department's request as well down Tuan Road, and that is also at his cost. So the $1,500 per unit, as mentioned by Mr. Williams, equals $500,000. $500,000 is going to be per door to this, which is being dedicated. We talked to our planning department, and if this could go towards water storage fund for future use for our future growth that we have in Parksville. And so that will be dedicated for that as he takes out his building permits. The offsite infrastructure is already in place regarding this development and so forth. However, the development for the offsite services will be borne also by the developer in this particular case. The rough estimate is what for the infrastructure upgrade, the developer will pay, not the taxpayers, will pay approximately 4.7 million is what is going to the cost to make sure that those services are provided. So I think that's what I'm just trying to capsulize what we all said here, because Ken's talking under very short terms here. So any other comments and for the delegation from council? Councillor Gore, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Williams. I appreciate you coming before council with a revised plan. As you know, there was a lot of concern in the community with the first plan, and then you presented the revised one. However, even with the revised one, I have a few questions for you. Just looking at some of the details of the plan, they're not very detailed. And I know it's your prerogative. Could you probably share what your intent is? Do you plan on moving on, selling this off and somebody else taking over? Or do you plan on developing this in the next 10-year build out, as you said? Thank you.
At this point, our plans aren't totally firm. Myself and my other two partners, we're not getting any younger. And, you know, we're certainly looking to move it forward to the point where get the thing launched and then see where it goes from there. That's our intent. We've been long-term owners, and as I say, maybe we should have addressed this 15 years ago instead of now, but that's where we're at in our life cycle. So
Go ahead, follow up. Sure. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Williams, couple of things about this proposal, and I guess it gets into the details of it, was the stormwater management on site. And I don't know if you got the letters from the RDN as well. They talk about, yes, the stormwater management on site being a big issue because this is so close to the ecologically sensitive river. Maybe perhaps this will be hashed out as if this plan moves forward, but I just wanted to bring you to your attention. The second thing is about the landfill. The previous landfill that's on site is very close to the proposed development. There's no mention of how that will be managed. So there's no contamination, there's no runoffs over to the river. Do you have any plans on that issue?
well, actually, that land is owned by the city, and I don't know what the city's plans are on it. It only borders a small section of our property at the toe of the hill, and actually, I get my directions mixed up, but to the corner of it, where at the bottom of Greig Road, that corner there, there's a couple of small wetland areas in there, and so a lot of that frontage that the old dump site has as a common property line to us, a lot of that frontage is actually in what we're dedicating as a covenant area that's part of a wetland area. So there's really not that much of the property that where it shares the border with the old dump that is of any concern. And I'm sure at that time, some, groundwater testing will be done. But at this point in time, after 30 years, we've never had any issues or reasons to think there's going to be a potential problem.
Yes, and I saw the letter as well. So if I could direct this to Director of Planning, Mr. Russell, is the applicant responsible for any potential infiltration and so forth from surrounding lands, which just happens to be owned by the city of Parksville? Is the applicant have to do any remediation or how do you feel on that, sir?
If I may, Mayor, it's usually the polluter that would have to address the issue. So whoever caused the contamination would have to address the issue.
Right. Thank you. And as far as stormwater management, are there anything within our approval process that suggests that there should be stormwater management? Is that to be worked out at a later date, Mr. Russell, when we get the full details of the building plan?
If I may, Mayor, so a couple things. The development on the site would be subject to a number of development permit areas. Those are the types of things that address road layout, where parking lots are located, where trees are located, where vegetation is located. There's a number of professional studies that would be required as part of those development permits. In addition, it's likely that the proponent would probably do a subdivision, which would also trigger infrastructure requirements with respect to storm drainage management, site grading, all those sorts of things.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments for go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been studying this and looking into this, Mr. Williams, and I respect you for persisting. It's your property, it's private ownership, right? And so I took the liberty to call Nature Trust to see if they would be interested in it, because they own 11 properties on the Englishman, and I've been involved in the Englishman all my life. And they said no, and I don't know why. I didn't ask, it's none of my business, but I thought, because there's so many people that didn't want to see housing there. So now with your proposal for the, missing middle, what do you estimate what the cost would be for one of these units? Do you have any idea?
Well, there'll be a range of, excuse me, there'll be a range of sort of sizes, which will obviously dictate what the price points are going to be. And sort of in the typical multiplex format, a lot of them are sort of three-story buildings with say 2 units on the ground floor, which would be smaller. They'd be 600, typically a 1-bedroom or 1-bedroom and den, 600 to 700 square feet. And then above it, there'd be typically two-story units that would be 2 to 3 bedrooms. So, and those would be anywhere from 1,050 to 1,300 square feet as an example. And so, the price points on them would probably range from the mid 300s up to the $700,000 range would be my best guess based on today's market.
So what I was wondering.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think one person has to turn their microphone off because we're getting feedback because there's 3 on at the moment.
Okay.
So if you're not speaking.
You're getting feedback. Ken, if you could just turn yours off for right now, and I'll turn mine off.
Is that on the right-hand side?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. That's fine. What I was going to suggest is, and you've already sort of answered my question. So there'd be a small suite, basically, you have a house or a townhouse, you have a small suite that could be locked out and it could be rented out. Because I have been in many like this, where there would be a mortgage, how can I say, helper, so they could help be able to have their own place.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. Absolutely.
Yes, that's what
Absolutely.
why I'm very keen on this for people who want to live in Parksville, because many we here can't afford it.
Right.
And so having this missing middle that you're mentioning often looked after, that would be very helpful. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I still find that many buildings in that small area to me seems quite a bit. So we'll have to see where that goes. But in this case, it's very important to to have the goal with what you've talked about. So it is feasible. It's not something that it's going to be $1 million again for another house. It's ridiculous. So
Right.
thank you very much.
Yeah. No, there won't be single family homes.
Councillor Wood, go ahead, sir. Oh, sorry. Here we are. I'm back on. Councillor Wood, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Question through yourself to Mr. Williams. You mentioned the public trails secured, I think, during your presentation, and I see it in the agenda. With the 100 acres donated to BC Parks Foundation, with the question of who's managing that is still in the air, I believe, up in the air. Are we sure those public trails would be secured, or is it more of a, it depends on the person who's managing that donation? Do we know exactly those public trails would be secured? Thanks.
Well, that's our understanding and part of what our gifting agreement will be with BC Parks Foundation to ensure those trails are kept open and will be maintained by the entity that BC Parks puts in place to manage the property on a long-term basis.
Okay, thank you. So it's not just a land preserve. Trails are part of that gift. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, and to that end, Councillor Woods, at the open house, I asked the representative, I think his name was Tim,
Tim, yeah.
from BC Parks anyways, what the trail uses was going to look like. And he says, there's a lot of existing trails on there and so forth, but they're going to be enhanced and improved in his estimation. And I asked if he'd be doing the work on it, and because I didn't want to offer a City of Parksville services. At that time, Tim mentioned that he'd be contacting other entities to actually manage the park. He was going to contact RDN. He was going to contact other parks management operators here in town. I'm sure he's waiting for it just to proceed to the next step before he goes along with those things, but it would probably be managed by someone that has expertise in that area. Right. Councillor Grams, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to our delegation. Thank you for coming again today. And I appreciate the second appearance and speaking to the concerns in the community, which obviously this is a significant proposal that you're bringing forward, which requires significant consideration and significant thought. And so I'd be interested, though, and it's not completely relevant to the land use decision, but I'd be interested to hear a bit of the history of the property from your perspective, how you came to acquire it maybe, and what's happened along the way in terms of ideas for selling it. I believe it was for sale at one point, for example. So if you can maybe speak a little bit to what your thought process or you and your partners has been for acquiring it, and then went up for sale. What's the background on that?
Well, we were introduced to the properties in the early 90s, I guess it was. We were involved in some other development. We used to, myself and some other guys, we used to own the Wembley Mall up, at the north end of town there. And so in the course of doing the initial renovation on that was before the community center and Canadian Tire and all that. We had it on a much smaller scale basis. But at that time, this property was introduced, and it was previously owned by a forest company, and then it was sold to a local logger who then turned it into a gravel operation on a limited portion of the property. And we looked at it at the time and, just saw the beauty in the property, particularly with the frontage on the Englishman River, and thought, long term it would make a good development property. And there's just the way things evolved over time. Because it was on the island and we're on the mainland, it kind of became, less of a priority, and we were involved in our own stuff that we were doing over there. And it's only recently that, the market activity over the last 10 years and, in this mid part of the island has improved dramatically. And part of it is the demographics, people, moving from the mainland over to the island here and now. So we just thought, now is as good an opportune time as any to try to move this thing forward. And we've been paying property taxes to the tune of $50,000 a year for the last several years on a property that we're getting no services or benefit from. So we think it's time that we did something definitive with it, and that's sort of why we're here today, and we let the community on the property during that period, trying to be sort of thought we were being good corporate citizens on it, and is maybe that was a mistake in the long term. I don't know, but we wanted that RDN approaches for the access up to the Top Bridge Park, which we agreed to do, and from that, there was spillage throughout the rest of the property, and that's kind of how the thing evolved to where we're at today. I hope that explains it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, the background and history. In terms of the second part of my question, it was up for sale at one point. Is that something that you were still entertaining, or now you're going all in on?
Yeah, I think we're at this point, we're pretty much going all in. We had it for sale thinking that a younger group than us would be able to take it through, and people have different ideas of what they want to do with the property. So we didn't want to sort of, I guess, handcuff it with what our ideas were, and so it started with the district group 3 years ago. They came forward with their plan and met the resistance that they did, and then we decided, well, we don't want to go through that again. So we've heard what the feedback was on that, and we thought we can do as good or a better job ourselves, and that's kind of where we're at today, and why sort of I'm the guy bringing it forward and not using professional consultant on this part of it.
Thank you. Yeah, and just maybe a comment on that is, I think it works better to have the direct relationship. So appreciate you taking that step forward. I do have more questions, but I'll maybe pass it on to others.
If you do it first time, yes. Councillor Fraz, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, through the mayor, to Mr. Williams. Thank you for coming out again today. I think in this project, definitely there's been a lot of concerns coming forward, and you've done a good job at trying to address each of them. There's a multitude of things that people are concerned with, whether it be the traffic, the density of it, the environmental impacts, dealing with the floodplain and so on, and appreciate all the things you've started tackling one by one. So when I go through this to make a decision and go, okay, has this concern been addressed, or to what degree, that's where we have to balance it out. And I think a lot of the friction that you guys deal with as well is some of the decisions we made, just at the speed that development has been happening in Parksville, because people just overall have concerns about that. If, this accelerated rate that we've been on in the last number of years is a trajectory that we're going to maintain, or is there some point where we're going to level things off here? So when I see concerns about the density amount, and you mentioned lowering it down. So are you still getting feedback there? I think maybe your mic. Thank you. And so when I hear you lowering it down to in the 300s there, and the style of housing to bring that more in line, I hope the community is recognizing that, because when the initial concerns were at 600 or 400 houses and homes, it brings it a lot closer to alignment, what I think is palatable. You mentioned about the Tuan Road upgrades, but I'm also concerned with Greig Road there too, especially cresting a hill. If there's a lot of flow of traffic there, it becomes a pretty big hot spot, and we see a lot of different things like delineators going up to try to address that area. So is there any upgrades that you plan to do to the Greig Road portion as well to address traffic?
No, Greig Road, we're just leaving as is. It will be available for emergency vehicle use only. So it'll be bollarded, so there won't be any traffic coming from the development onto Greig Road.
Okay, so all the traffic, you're expecting them to use the Tuan Road and the industrial area to access the property for that.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned about, giving public access to the land for those number of years, and if it was a mistake or not. I do want to extend my thanks to you though for that, because
You're welcome.
I think it is generous that you did allow the public on there, and it has been, it's the heart of the community. People really enjoy that area. Go through there for whether it's biking or walking, see people with their dogs. It's a beautiful area, and appreciate people being able to access that. And especially that you're committed to maintaining the public access and trails for them too. So, that part I really appreciate. The protection of the floodplain, as I mentioned, I think is wonderful that you're proposing such setbacks, because that's one of the major concerns of that area. And so when I look, as I mentioned, I look through this and think of all the little issues in a checkbox. I think you've done a good job as far as addressing each of them. You haven't left things where you just ignored it and brushed it aside and said, this is what we want or nothing. So yeah, I want to give my thanks to that. And there still is, a lot to weigh out in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely a tough decision for council, but we'll let's see how things go from here.
Appreciate your comments.
Any other first time speakers here? Yes, yeah, okay, I thought I saw your hand. Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to be honest, I actually don't have too much to answer. I had a little list here of things I wanted to ask about, and most of them have been answered, particularly regarding storm or rainwater management, and I imagine that some of those would be addressed later on if this moved ahead to the next level. Then at the level of development permits, et cetera, that would be looked at. Certainly want to see ground infiltration of water, and hats off for the work done. Thank you, Mr. Williams, around increasing that riparian corridor. And also, I'd like to, at this point, also thank the many people who sent in letters, and particularly ones concerned about pedestrian and canine traffic along trails, and if those come to being. And also, I do appreciate that the proposed housing or residential units for this area would be ground-oriented housing, because based on everything I have read and heard from people, that the lack of that is a real deterrent for families wanting to move into the area, because that is what families want to have, for children to have that ground-oriented building. So thank you for coming, and thank you to fellow council members who brought up some excellent points and questions, and I look forward to hearing.
I think that's it. Okay, Councillor Beal, you just froze slightly there, but have you concluded your statements, Councillor Beal?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you just lost you on the last few seconds there. Thank you. And to reiterate, we did hear a lot of letters and so forth from the public, and there's a lot of dog walkers out there. I got to tell you, we heard from a lot of dog walkers that were very concerned that they were going to lose the space that they've grown accustomed to previous to when Mr. Williams has led the public use that private land. And just to confirm anyways, 104 acres of that will be provided once again for those dog walkers that are in our community everywhere, apparently in great numbers. Mr. Williams, I didn't mean to cut you off after any response to Councillor Beal.
I was just going to point out that with regards to stormwater management, our engineering, Applin and Martin, in the course of doing their engineering work on the stormwater side, have indicated that the site is basically gravel, so the stormwater will be infiltrated into the ground. There's when we're so set back from the river that it's not considered to be an issue.
That's good news. Thank you. Councillor Gull, second time around, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Williams, I want to thank you again for allowing public access on your private property for all these years. You presented your perspective on ownership, your vision for development. I want to present another perspective on this property. This is an ecologically sensitive land that was bought more than 30 years ago. It's a wildlife corridor. The zoning and the history of it being in the RDN and why it was acquired by Parksville in the first place also tells us what the vision was in terms of preserving this land for the health of the river, the wildlife, and for recreational use, perhaps if it was to be bought off by the government. When you talk about developing riverfront property, maybe that was the thing in the 90s and the early 2000s. Our understanding of the hydrogeology, climate change, impacts on the wildlife, it's all advancing year after year, and we see why those setbacks are important, why low density close to the river is important. Just wanted to give you a little perspective of why I have been, and a lot of community members have been opposed to high density on this property. And this is not the first or the second time. I've heard that previously, I think there were attempts to develop this property for about 800 units. And even before that, about I think 400 some odd units that were also not successful. My question again, I think goes back to previously that I asked, other than a high density residential, have you thought of any other use for this property that could be beneficial for to the river and also be environmentally sensitive, not having that impact on the environment?
I think we've thought through what we think works for the property, and I believe what we have in front of you today is the best we could come up with, certainly.
I understand that. Thank you. I just wanted to mention that also the price tag of the property also reflects the developability and the vision of the land, because it's so environmentally sensitive, a lot of being on the floodplain. I just wanted to mention that to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Martin, go ahead.
We get lots of letters, as has been mentioned, and it seems to come all the time, whether we're adding development of any sort. Not enough water, not enough water, and we spent $500,000 on a study for 21 pages, and I'm just saying that with added numbers to this development in our population in Parksville, according to professionals, I'm just wanting to say this, there's not going to be a water problem. There is no. You can laugh at me, but I go by the professionals that have designations, and if they give us a designation, then I would think that they would be more knowledgeable than any one of us. I've been up to the dam, I've been through the plant, I've been looking at this water situation. I had it mentioned to me again today, and I just don't understand it, because we do have enough water, and I think it needs to be said. And whether this development goes through or not, this was also brought up about this. Water's a problem. And I don't know why, this is when I was running, it was water and housing, still water and housing 4 years later. And I wanted to mention this, that I do believe that people who have a designation, professionals, and who know what they're doing and would lose their designation if they told us there wasn't enough water, they would not give us a development. They can't do that. So this is the part I want to mention, because it came up to me already in 2 letters and today on the street. So I'm sharing my perspective, and people can laugh at me. I don't care. I go with professionals, and that's the only way I can do this and be a councillor and be speaking for people of Parksville. So I just wanted to make that statement. I actually find it really difficult. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. And I ask the audience if you'd stay respectful and do your share of listening at this point, and no comments or heckling is appropriate. So I would discourage any of that behavior. Thank you. Mr. Williams, do you have a response for Councillor Martin, or are we okay? Okay.
I agree with what she says.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Grants.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if you could maybe speak a little bit more about the future vision for the property should this go through. Could you maybe give a bit of an analogy of both the community neighborhood style? Like, would it be similar to Craig Bay, or what? Oh, getting feedback. Maybe which community could be a good analogy to understand what you envision for this? And also, in terms of the servicing aspect, would it be a strata managed infrastructure, or would it be city managed infrastructure under your vision?
I think I would envision it to be predominantly strata managed, because there'll be, and it'll be themed, which is stuff that gets worked on as you go through the development permit process. So, but I mean, it only makes sense to have an integrated community that's got a common theme, common development guidelines, roofing types, just so that, it's not a hodgepodge. It's an opportunity to create something new with, modern planning and building forms. And that's how I would see the thing evolving.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of any analogies that help us picture kind of what you have in mind?
Well, I think, Craig Bay is a good example. It's a master plan community and, I think it's stood the test of time in terms of its appearance and, it's 25 years old or whatever now, and it looks good. It's not, I don't see, this is not going to go individual lots selling off to people and they're going to put up whatever they want on it. It's going to, as I say, it will be an integrated community when it's all built out.
Thank you. If I can dig into that a little bit more, then the zoning you're seeking would be a comprehensive zone that would allow for retail sort of other uses, but you're proposing not to do
no
that.
retail uses, strict 100% residential uses.
Okay, so you'd
and restricted to multiplex to typically it would be 4 units per building, maximum 6 units per building, which might get you a row of townhouses, clusters. As we get into the planning more on the site, topography and tree location and stuff like that will dictate kind of what the layout is going to be on sections of the property. So, until we get into those studies, I really can't say. It'll end up being clustered, and there'll be surprising. I think everybody will be surprised at the end of it how much open space there's actually going to be on the portion that's going to be allocated for development.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. So you'd be sticking for sure to purely residential, not looking for any kind of mix on that. And because walkability is a kind of another consideration just in terms of communities being able to access different services by foot, not necessarily by car. And in terms of that vision, part of the parcel is set to be allocated for a parkland that is part of the development. I believe about 7 acres that you're proposing. Yeah. Can you maybe speak a little bit more for that side of it? What do you imagine for that? Again, recognizing the topography and all that sort of stuff.
I think what we're envisioning for that area is some of that area will be excavated out and some of the area that's currently in the floodplain, again, also about 7 acres. There'll be a lift or a cut from the 7 acre conservation area moved on to the area that's currently in the floodplain to elevate it to the flood construction level. So they're above the 200-year flood with some freeboard excess. And the opportunity then exists to actually increase the wetland potential in that 7 acres that we'll be taking fill from. So there's, as I say, there is an opportunity and to enhance wetland through that process as well.
Okay, and on that thread, in terms of the access for the residents of the proposed development, would that 7 acres be sort of parkland or some kind of recreation area for those residents, or what do you imagine for that?
I think it'll read as if it's part of the 105 acres that's part of BC Parks, which ultimately we might end up dedicating ourselves, but we need that at this point in time. We need that 7 acres in order to transfer material from A up to B. But long term, to me, it makes good sense that gets integrated with the 105 acres. I won't commit to it today, but because I can't. But to me, that would be the logical way. And it then continues to provide access from the development itself down into that 100, directly into that 105 acres.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Questions, Mr. Williams, just 2 questions for you. Thank you for entertaining all these questions. My question is about the 7 acres that Councillor was talking about. So it will be protected through a covenant, I'm guessing, as part of the rezoning. And the 105 acres that will be the parkland. Would there be a separate subdivision application at what stage of the rezoning if this moves forward?
Well, no, what we're doing is we're subdividing. Right now, it's one title. So we're seeking a subdivision of 40 acres off that one title. So we're creating a new title. I guess you call it the rest would be called remainder of lot 1, I think.
Okay. I don't see a subdivision application though right here. Like, would that be coming up later after the first reading? Staff question.
Mike's off. Mr. Russell, if you could please address that.
Certainly, if I may, Mayor, there is already a subdivision application that the city's received that has had preliminary examination. It really comes down to timing. So at this point, Mr. Williams is committed to register a covenant that would prohibit development on that site and slate it for the dedication that he's proposing to BC Parks. And it wouldn't be able to be used for any other purpose but what that restrictive covenant limits it to. There's a number of technical aspects with subdivision that may take time to resolve. And so that's the approach that is being proposed, is that the covenant would secure it at this point in time. But eventually there would be ultimately a subdivision that would split it off.
You good? Thank you. Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Grants.
Thank you. Thank you for entertaining all the questions. So let's imagine kind of a, like, from a, I guess from a developer's perspective, a worst case scenario for this property. My looking at the direction of the housing situation in Canada right now, my read is that we're actually probably heading towards cresting the hill in terms of demand and supply for housing. And we see, you know, empty condos in downtown Vancouver and Toronto. We see the federal government cutting off immigration and cutting off foreign students. And we've also seen a number of measures meant to restrict sort of speculation on housing, which also dampens demand for housing. So while we've seen a significant amount of development in Parksville over the last several years, these things go in cycles, as we all know. When I first moved to Parksville, it was pretty much a dead zone for development. And then since then, it's really, really picked up. And much of this is far beyond this table. It's just what supply demand is out there in the world, and immigration and all those things I mentioned. So in the situation where we see a drop off in demand and the conditions aren't what you were hoping they would be, what does that look like in terms of the project? Does that 105 acres still end up with BC Parks Foundation? And then the rest of the land after subdivision is going to, I guess, maybe potentially sit for a longer period of time? Or can you kind of imagine what that kind of scenario looks like?
That would be a potential scenario. The intention is that at the time approvals are granted, the land will be subdivided and gifted to BC Parks Foundation at that point. The timing of the development of the rest of it will depend on market conditions, and as they are cyclical, as we all know. And you know, would today be the ideal time to be starting? Probably not. But we've got probably a 2-year, at least a 2-year period to get all the planning and everything in place. And you know, we're all hoping things are going to be better when that happens. And you know, I can't comment on the immigration policies and sort of, you know, where growth is going to come from, but you know, I think generally I think the island is, you know, is gaining momentum, and it's an attractive place for people to come, and whether they continue to come in the same numbers, I don't know, but certainly I would hazard a guess there's still going to be growth, positive growth on the island one way or the other.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Echoing mics. Sorry, Councillor Wood and Councillor Beal, my mic goes off and on because we're trying to stop an echo problem we have here. So my apologies for not getting it on quick enough. Mr. Williams, any further comments? This is the end of your delegation presentation. Is there any further comments you have for this one?
No, I think I've said what I need to say, and hopefully have answered questions that people have had.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. I will then ask you if you could take a seat by your wife again, if you could. That would be great. We'll move on to, as we have moved on to the application for the delegation. We adjusted our agenda. The next report, council, on the agenda is regarding from the Director of Community Planning and Building, the follow-up report zoning amendment application at 1465 Greig Road for further consideration of a zoning and development bylaw amendment. I'm going to move the following recommendations. I'm looking for a seconder, if I could, please. Do I have a seconder for the recommendation? Unless you want me to do you want me to separate them? Okay, let's do that. I will move the first recommendation that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated July 2nd, 2026, entitled Follow-up Report, Consideration of an Application for a Zoning and Development Bylaw Amendment at 1465 Greig Road, Lot 3, District Lot 129, Nanus District, Plan 2072J-file number 3360-PZN059 be received. I'm moving that. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Seconded by Councillor Grants. Any further comments? The comments? Go ahead, Councillor Grants.
Just wondering when we may have questions to staff.
Sorry?
I'm wondering about questions to staff. At what time do you want to see those?
Right. Yeah, if it's to do with the motion to receive the report, now is the time to address those issues. If
Great.
you wish. Go ahead.
Then I have
You
some
do?
questions through to staff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Grants, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, so through you to staff, I do have a few questions that actually are pretty similar to what I was asking to the delegation. I would love to get input on that. If there's any thoughts from the Director of Planning around the servicing of the proposed property. So to help me understand what ratio of it would be strata managed versus managed by the City of Parksville, and further to that, also the management of the parkland as well, if there's additional information that has come through since our last meeting around that.
Mr. Russell, if you would, please.
Your Mayor, if I made it, Councillor Grens, at this point, we don't have a subdivision application for a development proposal for the proposed 330 homes. So your guess is as good as mine. Honestly, what approach will be taken, it's going to be determined by the developer at that time. They have their options open to them. They could put in municipal roads if they did a number of fee simple lots. They could also do a combination. Maybe there's, 3 or 4 separate stratas, or it could be one big strata. So that's open on what that ultimately is. If it is, again, depending on what there's pluses and minuses for both the developer and the city. For the developer, the advantage of a strata is they can usually put in smaller roads, a smaller road network. So there's that aspect. So that is unknown at this time. And like with most properties in the city, it is ultimately the landowner that gets to choose which type of subdivision they wish to pursue. And then as far as parkland, this again needs to be stated. This is a BC Parks Foundation donation that is being proposed. So it's not a municipal park. It's not a provincial park. It is essentially land in trust through a private nonprofit entity. And so the maintenance of that land would be up to that society and how they wish to pursue that. It's not a municipal asset.
Thank you. And I have a couple of questions I need to queue up though, because I've lost my spot on my thing. So.
Councillor Gura, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Russell, can you speak a little bit to the land lift? It talks about currently the land being 1.8 million and with the rezoning being 10 million. Is that the worth of the 40 proposed developed acres, or is it for the entire 145 acres, the value we're talking about here?
If I may, Mayor, it was based on the original proposal of the 405 units of the site being developed. So it was based on what was being proposed. So that was with part of the land being developed
Correct.
and part of it is an ecological gift. At least that's my recollection.
Thank you. I do want to follow up with the councillor's questions about the strata. Can council use the 219 covenant to mandate that it be a strata subdivision?
So if I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Gork, covenants are something that a property owner has to propose and be agreeable to.
Good, thank you. Councillor Grant, did you have yet? I'm going to go to Councillor Beal. Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question through to Mr. Russell. Mr. Russell, are you able to confirm or explain the degree of protection that what is proposed is that if it goes ahead, that is what will happen, i.e., it seems to me, and I don't write up these things, you know the technical vocabulary better than I, but it seems to me it would be important in the agreement that there be very solid conditions in place so that if in fact the subdivision was to go ahead, that it is conditional upon the gift to BC Parks Foundation, as a for instance. Are there concerns about the reliability of what is being presented actually taking place? Are there any concerns about how that needs to be carefully worded, or has this already been worked out with both the applicant and the planning department?
Mayor, if I may, through to Councillor Beal. So the wording of the covenant has to be prepared still. I would not be recommending a bylaw come back for final consideration until that is being satisfactorily prepared. So should the application advance to pass third reading, then the proponent will need to prepare an acceptable restrictive covenant. I would, however, like to point out two things in the draft bylaw that should the application advance would be for council consideration at a meeting in the future. One is that it's only changing the zone. The comprehensive development zone is only applying to the 16.2 hectare site that is being shown as development. The balance of the property, roughly 72%, forming the 42.7 hectares or 105.5 acres, that will retain the existing A1 zone. And then in the CD zone that's drafted, it also further restricts the development area to that that's exclusive of those covenants that have been proposed for the no build covenants that have been proposed on the buildable part of the site. If that hopefully clarifies things.
Thank you very, very much. That I think that's really helpful information and also really important information.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Beal. Any further comments to the motion on the floor? Councillor Grant, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Question through to staff. Could we just get confirmation that the proposed community amenity contributions are in addition to any DCCs that would be required for the property?
If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Guns, absolutely, they're completely separate and in addition to any development cost charges that would be due.
Okay, thank you. And another follow-up is, in terms of the OCP, what is the OCP to your estimation and vision for the property? Recognizing that there are different clauses in the OCP that speak to overall values for the community, but then also specific vision for properties like this.
Well, if I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Guns, ultimately council is the interpreter of the OCP in making their ultimate decision. So I think that you'll have to do your own sort of soul searching on that. That being said, the broader policies talk about cluster housing as a way of preserving large natural habitat areas on the property. That's what appears to be proposed to me. But ultimately, the satisfaction of that is council's to determine.
Follow up.
Yeah, and then in terms of the future OCP that we're going to undertake, yeah, I mean, we're getting into the spiritual realm here, I think, with some of these questions, but what do we see that process looking like as regards properties like this, and maybe considering what other communities do, and also recognizing, I suppose, that there's been changes to how the provincial government wants communities to undertake their OCP processes?
Yeah, if I may, your Mayor, through Councillor, it's a bit of a hard question to answer, crystal ball broken. That's a process that will unfold on its own as part of that review process. And so, what changes are envisioned for the future, that's ultimately for the future to decide. I think it's important to recognize that there are existing land uses on the property. There, it has agriculture and silviculture as permitted uses. It can be developed under those uses. Under its current zoning, it could be developed for approximately 9 to 11 4-hectare, 10-acre parcels. Each of those properties could currently have 2 dwellings on them, which could be further strata titled to allow for essentially 5-acre property. So that's what the current zoning allows. I believe that when the current OCP was developed, there was a vision that it's near the industrial site. So what does it become? Does it become more industrial land, or does it become residential land? So during the previous OCP, I believe it was envisioned that it'd be residential land with this possibility of allowing for clustering to try to preserve a larger swath of land near the river. It was similarly designated just strictly as single family residential in the OCP before that. So that's more than, I think that goes back to the 90s. So that's what's been envisioned for probably the last 25 plus years. Future is unknown.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And further to Councillor Gren's comments, I too was kind of amazed when I checked into that very same question, Councillor Gren's, the A1 zoning. So what could possibly happen with this one, with this property, without even seeking a rezoning application? And the A1 included silviculture, which unfortunately we've run into before. Silviculture means you can actually log the entire property. So as it is right now, without asking for any permissions, the landowner could actually take that and clear cut the entire parcel, the 150 acres, turn it into fence posts, sell it off for that, and then use that area under A1 to go for agriculture and put up commercial greenhouses and grow cucumbers and cover that whole site. And the community loses that entire site to public usage. And that really bothers me, because I too use that area all the time for my trail walking, and that would be such a shame. So it's that A1 designation is not beneficial, as well as if it went even to the commercial greenhouse application. It could actually, they would be probably seeking a water license to draw water out of the Englishman River, as they have a right to for agriculture use, and which alarms me even more on a totally different issue. So it's good to recognize what could have been and where we've got to today. So I'm kind of thinking that we've ticked so many boxes with this new proposal. And as you say, there's a lot of unknowns, and we've got to make sure that the covenants are airtight. But in moving forward, I think that we've got a great development, which, is the location that I love, because it's right beside the Englishman River, but it's also connected to Top Ridge Park, the Ardennes Park, and it has great potential to being a continuous loop trail system around Parksville. And it gives us a green zone at each area of our city, which for climate change and action reasons, that would be a perfect design for a planner to come up with. So it's ticking off those buttons to me by spreading our green space around to all areas of our very defined urban containment boundary. So that's why I'm kind of excited that we're still going to have potential public usage in this area rather than it going into a restricted residential zone or commercial agriculture zone. So I appreciate the recognition to what the A1 zoning actually could allow for. Councillor Fraz, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Through the mayor and Mr. Russell. Just wondering, when you speak about the covenant on that Parks land, can you just give me what kind of time frame are you talking about for having the covenants written? If you can maybe just explain a few how those steps might look going forward.
Certainly, if I may, through to Councillor Fraz. So the applicant would need to prepare covenants. Those would need to occur before final consideration of the bylaw.
Okay, so yeah, we're waiting on them then. Is there any reason why they weren't prepared up to this point?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question. That'd be a question for.
Sorry, I mean, from our side of it, is there any reason why is there any reason that we haven't like delayed it on them being able to provide it to us at this point? Like, are they waiting on us before they submit them, or?
They're not waiting on staff, if that's what you're asking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on the motion on the floor? Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This wording that's in the here, does it mean residential, or is there another word for it? Because it's supposed to be for residential only, right? So the wording in the that we're looking at today, the details, is it about residential, or is there some commercial designation here?
If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Martin. So the proposed zone does not contain any commercial activity. The only commercial activity that would be permitted would be at home-based business, which is permitted in all residences in the city. But there's no commercial area being proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions. Oh, I thought CAO was waving. You're just fanning yourself. Okay, great. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? Is this for number one? Yeah, that's why we're up here. Councillor Grant's I'm gonna call that again. All those in favor of recommendation on the floor, number one? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Do I have a mover or a seconder for the recommendation of number two? The comments collected by the applicant in response to their public open house held on April 7th, 2026, or comments submitted directly to the city be received for information and considered. Do I have a mover for that, Councillor Gar, second by Councillor Grans. Any comments regarding this motion on the floor? Or questions?
Comments?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank Mr. Williams for organizing the open house, but I would like to mention that it was so close to the Easter holiday that I do think a lot of people did not get the opportunity to attend. This is an important application project that's of utmost concern to a lot of community members, and we received a multitude of emails saying how somehow they felt that it was the council's decision to hold this open house at this date. So it wasn't. It's up to the applicant. But I do want to mention that there was concerns raised by the community. And I also want to thank you, all the members who did come to that open house, including council members, myself, and the mayor. We want to know what the community is thinking. We want to be part of collaborative decision-making on this project and future projects. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wood, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. And building on Councillor Gore's statements, just wanted to thank everybody who came out. I want to thank the Mr. Williams for putting it on. You know, the date, sometimes it's hard to find any ideal date, but it always helps council to read emails or to meet in person and hear people's concerns. And I think we've heard a lot of concerns about this property over the last few years. And I just wanted to thank everybody for taking time and the effort to put their comments forward and make sure council hears them, whether it's email or phone calls. We appreciate it. It helps us know the community's concerns. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wood. Councillor Beal, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to thank Mr. Williams for including the representative of BC Parks Foundation. It was really helpful to ask questions directly regarding that offer of the 105 acres. I will also add, I'm very glad that so many people did write in directly, given that it was somewhat unfortunate that at the presentation, there wasn't the opportunity for people who attended to leave their remarks immediately there, but rather they needed to take a card and then contact later. So there were a number of extra steps, which one doesn't normally get at a public information session. But we certainly did hear from a lot of people from the public, so that was really appreciated. And again, really great to have the BC Parks Foundation person there as well.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. Any further comments to the motion on the floor? Councillor Grenz.
I'm loath to repeat what other councillors say normally, but I think it's worth saying and repeating again here to extend thanks to the community for their contribution to the comments and emails. There's so many emails I couldn't even keep up necessarily to reply to them. So it's very much appreciated to hear the perspective of folks in the community. And it really is an important part of the decision-making process at this table because, you know, trying to do our best to represent the wishes of the community, but also not just that, but the wishes of the future for this community and what is best for future generations in the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further comments? All those in favor of, motion to recommendation number 2. Sorry, Councillor Grant, you were drinking or you're voting too? Yeah, okay. It carries unanimous. Thank you, Council. For the motion number 3, that notice is given of the consideration of first reading of zoning and development amendment bylaw 2026 number 2000.159 at the regular meeting of council scheduled on Wednesday, September 9th, 2026, commencing at 1 p.m. A mover and second for that? I so move, and seconded by Councillor Martin. Any comments regarding this motion? Councillor Gore, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I have a question for staff on this. Is there a reason, Mr. Russell, there is a notice and it's not a first reading at this time?
If I may, through to Councillor Gore, it would be presumptuous for us to give notice of council's intent to consider a bylaw without council first providing us with direction to do so, because there's some significant costs associated with advertising, et cetera, and doing mail outs.
Right. So just to build on that comment, thank you. So this notice would mean going into the local paper, social media, letting the public know, and also a signage on the property saying that council is considering the first reading. Is that correct?
If I may, Mayor, through Councillor Gore, so there's already notice signs on the property. Their format's slightly different, but in the newspaper and the mail out, yes, it would be notice of the first reading of the bylaw with the date and time specified.
Thank you. I just want to share my feelings on this, and I think a lot of the council members and the mayor probably are aware. However, this proposal to me is definitely improved version of what was presented 3 years ago. Even a few months ago, I think, Mr. Williams, thank you for listening to the community. The concern about density close to the river persists for me. It's still there. And the concern with this proposal is still there with the community members. And we've heard that multiple times. It's not just a few group of people who are loud on social media. It's not just one group who is hell-bent in stopping this development. But if you ask, the majority of the people in Parksville are opposed to high density close to the river. It's definitely, like I said, checks few boxes in terms of setbacks, a lower density protection of the river in a way, but also the parkland is a big thing. Speaking of the parkland dedication, when I spoke with the BC Parks Foundation representative, he is not very confident that it will be managed by, it will not be managed by RDN or the city of Parksville. His understanding is it will likely become a regional park or a city of Parksville property to manage. So that will be our property taxes to take care of that 105 acres is my understanding. Speaking of communities' opposition to this, I am very reluctant to override their judgment unless there's a compelling reason. And for me, there isn't on this on this proposal. It's creating a satellite township on the other side of the river. High density close to the river. We saw the report, the letter from MIBIs, and they very, very clearly mentioned how a high density close to the river can have negative impact, will likely have negative impact on the river. For all those reasons, fully acknowledging the improvements made, I am very reluctant to support this. I think there's a lot of anxiety out there in the community when it comes to drinking water. Yes, we will hear more on the 20th. But for me to say yes to something that would be developed 10 years from now, to me, it's like walking in the dark, not knowing what the water situation is going to be like in the 10 years. We still have to secure the water source. We know we are short on the water. What is that? 67% reliability, 2.2 million short of what we're required to. So for me to say yes to a future development, not knowing how the infrastructure and the water situation is going to be like, I think it's irresponsible. So I cannot support this at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, did you have your hand up or not? Okay. Councillor Beal, go ahead, please.
I believe that Councillor Wood had his hand up before me, if you'd like to go ahead. Oh, all right, thank you.
He's waving to you.
Okay. So I wasn't quite ready. No, I thought I'd be next. Yeah, I do have a few comments to make about this. One thing is that, actually I'll share an outing that I took. Councillor Gore is aware of this. I was in Saanich during the AVICC and had a tour of an area that they were rewilding along the Colquitts River. And that particular area was about 64, 65 acres, not 105 acres. And in that area, since they have done a bit of work
Councillor Beal,
there because it did need to be
Councillor
brought back.
Councillor Beal, we can't understand you right now, and I've noticed it's what I notice it's when you lean back in your chair, like you're moving away from your microphone, you fade out, or it becomes discombobulated, if we may. So if you lean into your microphone, I think we're okay. Anyways, we lost about the last 10 seconds of what you were saying there, Mary. If you could repeat, please.
Thank you very much. I had the opportunity to view an area that was in Saanich. Now, in that particular area, there were more than 2,000 residents right around there, as well as a mall. And going into the area that had about 65 acres, trying to really, support the natural environment. As we walked along, we saw very few people walking through, all staying on trails. I noticed that the trails were in fact protected with, in their case, split rail fencing. And we learned that the heron have come back, native frogs have come back. The reality, I think, is that even when you have a number of residents near a natural area, people really appreciate it, but it does not necessarily mean that it will be overrun with with people at all times. I happen to live not very far from the estuary, and again, there's over 210 houses in the area, but you do not see, when you go down into the estuary, a large number of people at any one time. I think it is really critical that, just speaking to the BC Parks Foundation gift, again, assuming if this does go ahead, I think it is going to be important that there's a solid management plan. I actually contacted BC Parks Foundation directly and was transferred to the person who's involved with actually creating management plans. He did explain to me that, as someone else, a couple of people, you yourself, Mr. Mayor, mentioned, that what they generally do is work with, whether it be local governments or, habitat group, various groups in communities to actually manage the areas. However, they can and will, or can create a management plan, monitor areas. They post cameras, very concerned about wildlife corridors, etc. So I think that there are tools in place to assure that if this goes ahead, that the conservation area will in fact be conserved. I agree with, I was really appreciative of the letters that we received who raised this concern, and perhaps thinking that there's nothing that could be done to effectively manage such an area, but that's not what my observation or what I've learned indicates. I particularly agree that both pedestrian and canine traffic would absolutely need to be managed in a way. And I think that when people, and again, my observation is that when there are clear trails and in fact protected areas, just as we see in Rathtrevor Beach, just as we see in other more naturalized areas, that people do respect those trails and they don't wander off and create trails all over the place. Again, I really do appreciate that the concerns that people have raised, but I also do think that this current proposal, if well managed, and again, that wording needs to be so important so that a restrictive covenant is solidly in place to protect the areas that do need protecting. And also, I'd like to mention that, increased density of housing is not in and of itself a bad thing. It, as I have learned, and again through observation, but also through reading, increased density actually uses fewer resources, per the area that they cover, than more traditional housing that many of us have grown up with. So the fact that the housing is more dense is not necessarily a detriment, and in fact, I think it could be a real bonus. Also, again, I think there are many advantages there. The concern that we end up with sort of a satellite area, a couple of years ago, I would have totally agreed. But as this council knows, we have in fact approved some commercial areas that are going up across 19A, including the expansion of a building that would allow for a grocery store. And all of these areas are actually not that far from this particular proposed development. So again, there's opportunity there for people to access some of the things that they need without adding traffic over the bridge. So for all of these reasons, and actually some more, I intend to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beale. Councillor Wood, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question through to Mr. Russell and then a comment, if I may.
Go ahead with your question first, please.
Mr. Russell, so we're considering that notice is given of the consideration of first reading, and that'll be on Wednesday, September 9th. I'm assuming that we'll be able to take, it's not a public hearing where we cut off correspondence. So from this time to that date, we'll still be able to receive public comments on the file, obviously. I just wanted to confirm that.
If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Wood, there is no cutoff because there is no public hearing.
Thank you. And then Mayor, my comment is, we still are receiving emails about this file, and I received an email just a couple of days ago after the agenda was already out. And, I tried to respond to every email that I got. But the person who was asking me a question didn't even know that the number of units had dropped to 330. So, and that, of course, is after the public open house. So I think as the file changes and people learn more about the file, that I think it's worth continuing to let the public know where this actually is, kind of the direction that it's going, and so that we continue to receive input as council. And I also wanted to mention that, yes, property taxes, depending on who is managing the BC Parks Foundation property, and we don't know who that might be yet. Property taxes are definitely a concern, and we see them, rising across the country. And I think this council tries to do its best in keeping property taxes as low as possible. But in the roles that we do have difficult decisions to make. And at the RDN, we had to decide whether or not to provide Hamilton Marsh the property taxes to save it, which has been in the works for decades, really. And so 90% of Hamilton Marsh was paid for by property taxes, something on the order of $26 million. Is that a great decision? I hope so. I voted for it. Is it a great price? Is it a great price to pay Mosaic? These are very tough questions that we deal with property taxes. I think it was the right decision. But regardless of who is going to manage that property, manage the BC Parks Foundation, I think we have to consider that property taxes are being used in good ways, such as the Hamilton Marsh. I feel it was a good vote to support saving Hamilton Marsh, even though 90% of it was property taxes. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Yeah, you touched on a couple points I was going to bring up in closing here. I'll just talk about Hamilton Marsh for a little bit. As Councillor Wood has pointed out, that was a very large purchase that is spread among the taxpayers in the RDN territory. And so be it. And we made that choice because it was, I believe, the right choice. In this particular case, we're getting a very large, ecologically very sensitive preserve that's going to include wildlife corridors, walkability, and the canine crews are going to be out there able to use it. But it's going to be managed in a ecologically sensitive way. As our staff have demonstrated very much of late, they recognize that there's the right way to do things, and when it's in regards to riparian areas, there's a proper way, and there's standards in place. And I'm sure that whoever manages this will take that in consideration, because the Englishman River needs protection as well. So when I look at this decision, I look at all the letters and the emails and the phone calls and all the times they get stopped in the middle of the street. And I have to say, what is best for the people I represent here at this table? And that is the people of the city of Parksville. That is who I represent. What is in their best interest? And part of that means, as Councillor Beale pointed out, densification is not always bad. In this particular case, if it's planned and provided for accordingly, it can actually lessen the impact on the rest of our Parksville taxpayers by sharing that burden of the huge costs that we have coming up, like with the hospital, the sewage treatment plant, and so forth, and so on. So this is great that we have the assessment on the units that are being created, over 330 units. The assessments on those are going to provide a sizable property tax lift, if we can use that same term, to the city of Parksville residents. And it will ease the burden. It's much better to spread this entire huge infrastructure costs that we're all having to endure on everything we touch these days. If we can spread that among 330 more units, well, you do the math yourself. If they're coming on assessed, as Mr. Williams suggested, in between $500,000 and so forth, that tax assessment, which is the only source of revenue we have at the city of Parksville, will be increased substantially. And as pointed out, with densification, it means better land utilization. And so we already have the infrastructure and the services that go right by this area, Greig Road. We have a capital investment in putting that infrastructure in place. The city of Parksville has every right to try and regain the amount of infrastructure costs by opening up for development. In this particular case, the development and with their utilities for water and sewer and so forth, they pay for it. They're going to help to pay for that infrastructure that's already in the ground, plus any future infrastructure for additional requirements or additions or improvements to the sewage treatment and water plants. So I look at it from that point of view that because I have to say that early on, a couple of years back, when we talked about this property, I said, well, why don't we just buy it, the city of Parksville? And so I went to our accounting people and I said, why don't we just do that? Like, let's just pay for it and buy it outright and turn it into parkland. And I said, what are the ramifications of that? And it came back and said, yes, you could. It would be a lot of money for one thing that the taxpayers would have to pay for. But the other thing they said of more questionable benefit would be the fact that the taxes would be lost forever. The potential taxes of that property would be lost forever. In this case, 330 units would be lost forever if we took it over as a park. So we have to, as we densify, increase our assessments because we have to have more citizens, because that's what we do as a city. We respect property rights of the landowners to develop the property. But in this particular case, we would lose the potential revenue that the city of Parksville would get. So I'm in favor of this proposal because I think it's of greatest benefit for providing a huge amount of parkland to the citizens of Parksville, but it also has the overall effect of reducing that burden of the property taxes, which is immense of late. So that's why I'll be supporting this. Thank you. Next, any other speakers on the motion on the floor? Councillor Beal, has your hand reappeared or is that all?
It's up.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't referring, you had old hands.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead,
Thank you.
Councillor Beal.
Thank you very much. I would like to add that, the additional 105 acres to BC Parks Foundation is, in my mind, a very important consideration. It's not the only consideration for me by any means, but it really is. I think that if this does go ahead and with this additional conservation land, it's a benefit not only to our immediate residents, but we are members of the biosphere, and having increased conservation land is an important role that we can take as members of the biosphere. And also what it can do is increase access to nature and increase access to active transportation corridors. And whenever we do that, and in this case, we're not even having to pay for it, but that is a benefit for health dollars, because when people can get out into nature and exercise in ways that do not cost money as well, it's a benefit to every resident who can take advantage of that. So those are very important to me. But I also do thank you, Mr. Mayor, for mentioning that when we do have additional residences there, it will in fact increase contributions to cover essential services that we have. And for many years now, the fire department has raised some concerns about needs for increasing facilities. And that's regardless, that's separate from this development going in if it does get approved eventually. And so that will also be a benefit, that as well as other essential services that we all need.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. Any further comments? Councillor Grants, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. So as I understand it, the Bill 44 prevents councils from holding public hearings on matters like this where it is consistent with the OCP, where the proposal is consistent with the OCP, and instead does require that councils give notice of first reading, which we're doing is before us right now as a motion. I am in support of that motion. To Councillor Wood's point, we are receiving correspondence from the community, and it's our chance to hear. This is how we can hear. There's no public hearing, so this is how we hear from the community. We've heard quite a lot already, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. I will just anecdotally, I'd point out a few things. Is that Parksville is zoned already, and it's also owned. It's zoned and owned, and so when we think about how we can get more community spaces for the community, we pretty much have to acquire that land or get it somehow, because even though there are a number of properties in our community that look like they're kind of green space right now, they're actually owned by somebody like this property, where they actually, if they wanted to, could log it or do any number of things without even coming to council for it. In this situation, we have a landowner who is looking to act on their property and do something. So change is coming for sure on this property. And so I don't see us being able to necessarily stop that change, but we can help shape it and help shape the direction of that change. And this conversation we've been having over our term really on this property has evolved quite a bit in terms of what is being offered to the community here. I was just last weekend on Galiano Island. My wife was speaking at the Galiano Conservancy there, and that island was at one point entirely owned by a logging company, and they just logged the whole thing and then sold it off actually kind of before the market for that property would have gone crazy. Like if you were to do that today, if they had held on to it longer, they would McMillan Blodell probably would still exist today, and they'd exist as like a big land ownership development conglomerate, not a logging company. But they actually sold it before that, and which was a great opportunity for the Land Conservancy and through the Islands Trust to acquire a bunch of that land and now preserve it and restore it. And there's amazing stuff happening there. I was able to go through a food foraging garden there that was really cool to be able to just pick berries from there. And it's open to the public. It's managed by the Galiano Conservancy. And this is the kind of way I think that we have to do this on the island, because the island is basically owned. There's not crown land on here like there is in other parts of the province. So we have limited tools in terms of being able to create parkland and preserve areas for future generations. And as we look to, I was at in Davos for the biodiversity forum, and there's the objective to get 30 by 30, preserve 30% of the land by 2030. And we have to be creative in terms of how we get to that goal. And it's a very important goal that we should be working hard towards. And so these are the sort of things that are in mind as how do we actually get the kind of change that we really want to see for the future. And so I'm happy to move this to the next stage and continue the conversation.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Councillor Fraz, go ahead, please.
Thank you to council through the mayor. Considering this, and appreciate hearing all of everybody's thoughts on this too. Definitely hear Councillor Gower, hear your concerns there about becoming satellite community and so forth. Is regarding the water, I heard the delegation there speak that they're going to come up with the costs that they impose on the water infrastructure, even as things progress and at the phases that they're at. Same with the DCCs, whatever they'll be at the time of those phases coming through. So I appreciate knowing that they're not locked in at a good rate now, and then things to, when we come up with needing more water infrastructure, that they're getting the 2026 price on that. I would like to see this move forward to first reading, but for me, the land gift is a tipping point factor on this, and I don't feel that part is locked in yet. the covenant not being written and a management plan not being made for it. I don't want to see things, it's like we come up with that as we go, and then we get so far where now we're locked in and we're committed to something where we didn't have regional partners involved in it from the get-go, and now we're stuck bearing the cost of it ourselves. I don't want to see that happening. I do think this, if it was going to be at the municipal and regional level, that RDN is a partner involved in it, and I don't know if they've even been brought to their attention. I don't know what level of involvement they have, or what they've committed to it, or what discussion has taken place. I'm not aware of that, but I definitely think they should be involved. This area is definitely, even though it's in parcel boundaries, benefited by the entire regional district and its users as well. But especially that there is no reason for there being a holdup on the covenant in place, aside from perhaps just it hasn't moved forward, so they didn't want to put that part of it forward yet. To me, the covenant has to be presented for us to then take the next step. So I'm not going to support it today. I think there is enough support, though, that it is going to go for that towards first reading, but I also wanted to make a statement of it too, is I won't be supporting it without those things locked in and some plan of action to move forward on for that land gift.
Councillor Fraz, can we pose a question to our Director of Planning and how we can, I understand what you're saying. You want assurances. What, Mr. Russell, what assurances could we have to make sure that the proposed covenant will come in place?
Well, if I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Fraz, as was mentioned before the bylaw would come for final consideration of council, the proponent would have to have their covenant prepared in a form that's registerable, and it would actually have to be registered prior to the bylaw coming for final consideration of approval. Should the proponent provide documentation earlier, then documentation would be provided earlier. But ultimately, when the sort of rubber hits the road is prior to final approval of the bylaw, those things need to be registered.
If I can, I fully understand that. I know we don't have to cross the finish line until we're satisfied, but that puts us in a position of pressure as well. And I'd rather put that pressure on them and say, how about we don't get started until that's brought forward? I don't want to be sitting at the finish line, having to weigh that out and go, hey, this is the one thing to tip the scale. I'd rather that be brought forward before we start off. To me, this was one of the biggest beneficial things of this proposal, is going, hey, there's this big land gift. Okay, well then let's have that part prepared.
Mr. Russell, were you saying that it would be in place before the September 9th meeting?
Mayor, it's up to the applicant. It's their application. Yes. It's not my application. So it's entirely in the applicant's hands when they're prepared to provide documentation for council.
Right. So we as council could instruct that before that's going to happen on September 9th. We want that in place.
You can do it formally or you can do it informally.
Right. Thank you.
I should mention too, I'm just one vote at the table here. I'm just bringing this forward so it's clear to the developers and also clear to the community that they're not the ones that just have to sit there sweating and going, is this promise going to become good or not? That at council here, we have a voice saying to them as well. And I'm not just speaking just as like the one person. I think there's agreement across all of us in that sense that we want to have these promises assured. And just so that as a council, there's a vote there that represents that part of it. And, whether it's at first reading when it comes forward, if we all take that position or however, but I'm just, I just want to make that be known to them so that there's some assurance for the community too.
Thank you. Councillor Grants, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fraz, for those comments. I definitely take your point on that. I think there's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario here, and with regard to the management, I think that's also a valid question. And my understanding is that there is some conversation starting on that, and maybe that's what I was asking a bit earlier to staff. And maybe I can ask through to staff if there's confirmation about whether conversations are starting about the actual management plan for the property, whether there's information that can be shared on that.
If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Grants, I've had no discussion on management of the property. At this point, we're just trying to get it secured.
Yes, and I could suggest that there is other information that I can share, but so far it's in camera. And I can't share it at this time, Councillor Grants, for your management plan. So I'll leave that at that right now. Thank you. I just make sure Councillor Grants is.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. You okay then? Okay. I'm gonna call the question, folks. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? That is approved by Councillor Beal, Councillor Wood, Councillor Martin, Councillor Grants, Mayor O'Brien. All those opposed? That is opposed by Councillor Fraz and Councillor Gore. Motion carries. Thank you. Good discussion, folks. Really good. Great. Moving on, I guess we're going to go back to where we would have been. Okay?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I know,
Um,
we're going, yes.
Do you want to do a 5-minute recess to clear the room or
Okay, yeah,
in
yeah.
case people want to leave?
Anyways, I'd like to call a 5-minute recess in case anybody needs to leave or use the facilities or go for a walk. Thank you. 5 minutes, we'll reconvene at 3 o'clock. Thank you. If we could all take our seats, folks, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Who's missing? Calling Councillor Grenz. Councillor Grenz. Maybe he's in the washroom. Okay, folks, if we all take our seats, please. Thank you. And those online, yes, we're back. We had a bit of a crowd in here, people, so we're moving on now. We have, next is the report on the agenda from the fire chief regarding the community wildlife resiliency plan. The council endorsement, do we have a presentation by Chief Norris at this time, or just the background information in our package? Thank you. Council, you all got the wildlife resiliency plan, very extensive, I must say. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation? Do you want the separate, council, or do you want to move it all three? All three is okay. Moved by Councillor, oh, sorry, let me finish my sentence. Do I move or seconder for the recommendation as noted? Moved by Councillor Gower and seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any comments or discussion on this? Yeah, so do I, but I'll go ahead, Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Chief, thank you for that report. Very comprehensive. I know it talks about some recommendations. I was wondering, since the Parksville Fire Department area of responsibility is beyond the city of Parksville's boundaries, it includes Area G, would this information be shared with them as well?
Chief Norris, if you could, please.
Through the mayor to the Councillor Gar. Yes, the resiliency plan is shared with, is available to the RDN, and we will share it now that if council approves it today, we will share it. And you're right, we have a contract with the regional district. They have wildfire resiliency plans for each of the electoral areas in the regional district. So our plan basically dovetails with the plan for electoral area G in the regional district. So our plan specifically covers just the city of Parksville, but it does have a interface area of interest that is broader. And so with our neighboring areas, significantly the Arrington area, which is area F of the regional district, and area G. Yeah, but as well as Qualicum and Anus.
Great, thank you. So yeah, that's very important to have that regional collaboration on an important issue like this. A question through you, Mayor, to staff, our CAO. As we revise the OCP, look at some of the DPAs and the zoning bylaws that are, as per the report, kind of outdated, perhaps there's opportunity to utilize this information from this report when you do those revisions. Would the staff be looking into that as well? Thanks.
If I may.
CEO, go ahead, please.
Yes, it would be common practice to consider every document that we have and all of the recommendations that we have when we're looking at that. And I believe in our RFP, we expressly mentioned that plan because it was underway.
You good? Thank you. And I have a question myself anyways to Chief Norris and to maybe the CAO in particular. Going through the plan, there's a number of actionable items and recommendations that I went through, quite a few of them, and they weren't ever put all together, but there's quite a few. And I understand that this is just to look at all of those items that they've identified and so forth. And so what we're passing today, I hope, is to actually look at the financial implications of it and whether it's whether we're looking for more people or more resources of any sort. And that's all we're doing in this time. We're not actually taking action on it. We're just studying what those actions are and what that would look like. And when will that come back to council?
Thank you. I'll start, and if the chief throws his hat at me, I'll let him go next. So typically what we do is we ask council to endorse the recommendations from the consultants. So this will be similar to how we presented the master transportation plan and the urban forest strategy. And then what staff do with direction from council and input from council is we bring forward priorities through the budget process. So if there's specific priorities that Chief Norris identifies, we would do a costing or a business case on those items and then present it to council through the budget. And that would include the money that would be spent on the item, any possible grant funding that we're getting or sharing with the RDN, for example. And then it would also identify where in the work plan that item occurs. So if it's in 2027 or 2028. And so council would endorse that in context of all of the other priorities that you're looking at.
Fair enough. That totally answers my question. Thank you. Any other questions for staff or comments regarding the motions on the floor? All those in favor? Thank you. That passes unanimous. Thanks, council. Now, next up on the report, we have also from the fire chief regarding the Parksville Fire Department 2025 annual report. Is there going to be a verbal update on this or not? Councillor or Chief Norris?
I'm promoted to councillor.
I'm not sure about that.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't going to make a formal presentation on the annual report. It was in council's package. Just a few things to note. We're up slightly in call volume, and I do have a verbal update on this year to date just to follow this. And we continue to trend up in call volume, and as well as fire prevention related activities related to Fire Smart, annual fire inspections, business licensing inspections, and all those sorts of things. So that's where we're seeing pressure is increasing. Our call volumes are starting to trend upwards again, as well as our fire prevention activities. And if there's any questions about the report itself, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Chief Norris. Is there any further questions or comments regarding the annual report? Go ahead, Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question through to our fire chief. Well, first off, thank you for both items there. I do wonder if there are ways that you see us supporting the helping mitigate the concerns around fire rescue having to respond to calls that aren't really fire related and are more public safety or those sort of related items. Is there anything that that we can do to help support that or mitigate that, or what do you see? So you mentioned it's trending upwards.
Which type of calls would you be speaking?
Well, sure, any of them. We want the call volumes increasing, but there are ones in particular like health responses and that sort of thing.
Well, medical calls are anywhere from 20 to 25% of our call volume, depending on the year. They're hovering around 20% right now, I think. I think we're at the minimum level that we should be at. A lot of departments respond to more categories of medical calls than we do. In order to be, we are a public safety organization in our community, and we do offer backup to BC Ambulance, and that's really the level at which we're operating right now. Medical calls are, we live in an area where the population is generally of an older age, or there's a higher aggregate population of older adults here, and that comes with a level of medical calls that that is just part of the population. One of the calls volumes that is escalating is alarm calls. So some people will call them false alarms. A false alarm is only an alarm that's by a malfunction or something like that. Most times an alarm system is doing its job when it goes off. So if the alarm detects something, sometimes it could be dust or steam or something like that. It thinks it's seeing smoke. So it's actually doing its job. Where we're running into issues is with some alarm company monitoring purveyors that don't take, a contractor will call in and take the alarm offline, ask the alarm to be taken offline while it's being tested. And then they'll send the signal through anyways when they get the signal. So we are having some concerns with that, and we're looking into ways to mitigate those things. Of course, with more construction comes more fire alarm systems, more housing, more apartments, more fire alarms, more alarm calls. And I will mitigate that. Well, I not mitigate, but I will say that we have to treat every alarm like it's a fire. Because we do arrive at calls where we get an alarm call and there are fires. So, which is exactly what the alarm is for. So, but alarms is probably the area where we need to do the most work in alarm, sort of unwanted alarm reduction. That makes sense.
Good. Follow up.
Yeah, just to follow up, I have heard previously that that sometimes we don't have the kind of ambulance support in our area, that may be down in Nanaimo, or, not both cars running, that sort of thing. I just was curious if there are any concerns around that and anything we can do in terms of advocacy or asking about that, or is that all something that you manage?
Through the mayor to Councillor Grenz, I would absolutely request that you advocate for more staffing in BC Ambulance. I think one thing that we could look at for this area is an advanced life support car to support the Parksville Qualicum area. Currently, we have to wait for it to come from North Nanaimo. But in terms of ambulances traveling back and forth to Nanaimo, that's where our general hospital is, and that's going to continue to happen. If we added the next level of calls, we would add 1,000, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,050 calls a year. So most apartments do the next level of calls, but we are not doing that. It would add way too many calls too. So we respond in 3 ways with BC Ambulance. We respond to what are called purple calls, or they're the highest acuity calls, where intervention makes the biggest difference. We do have an ambulance station here, so we don't think we need to go to all the other call types, because the public does have access to those ambulances. We also go to assist calls. So if BC Ambulance calls us for help, they have a large patient, they need extra hands, CPR takes a lot of people, and various other things, like we might assist them with gaining entry into a structure because we have the tools to do that. And then we also respond to delay calls. So that next highest level, or that next level of calls that would increase our call volume by 1,050 a year or so. If they are delayed more than about 16 or 17 minutes for those calls, then we will respond to those calls. But that's only if they are delayed.
Okay, thank you. And yes, we'll do what we can in terms of advocacy on that other point. And there's EBCM coming up in the fall as one venue for that. And I guess maybe a question through to staff, whether there's opportunity to do that. It's too late for that. So we'd have to do just, as they happen, which is definitely possible as well. Yeah. Sorry,
Okay, go ahead.
The next opportunity would most likely be AVICC next spring, and then advancing that to UBCM if that's approved by that group.
Would a letter be something we should consider for that? Yeah, so I've heard concerns raised on this, which are a bit alarming. I guess not a pun, sorry. Is when sometimes when an ambulance goes down to Nanaimo to deliver a patient to Nanaimo, they then get called to Nanaimo calls and don't make it back to Oceanside, which leaves our community without an ambulance. And so I know they're trying to balance all their patient load and needs and stuff in our region, but that is a definite risk for our community. So I wonder if that's something we should be pursuing.
I can just confirm, would a letter be helpful? In this climate we're in right now, with it, if it's a provincial level, which this would be, our letter writing campaign has created great letters and not so good responses. I can tell you that's a fact. Very disappointing responses, quite frankly, about, yes, we look at this, but it's just not happening at this point. Their financial situation seems to be riding herd over a lot of other very good decisions that were made in the past, and those are being revoked now, and they're not too responsible for anything that adds new costs right at this time. It would have bigger impact if it received endorsement, I think, at AVICC and hopefully move to UBCM level. That's what it would be. And then there's a lot of water under the bridge where they're going to be posturing for a position at that point. I'm just reality. I'm not trying to throw water on yours or an extra Band-Aid, but that's reality right this point. Councillor Grants has been I mean, if you want to just discuss it with our local MLA to say what is the potential for this, would you be willing to have at her? Yeah, go and maybe a conversation, and that would be great. It might be worthy of something. Maybe our MLA is not aware of it, but I think maybe an initial conversation is like to check the temperature would be good. I'd appreciate it if you'd take that on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Grants. Go ahead, Councillor Frost.
Just a question on that. They're just, sir, you're saying that so our ambulance goes to Nanaimo to do a call, and now they're dispatched to Nanaimo and they spend perhaps the rest of the day, or they spend some time down there rather than returning here. And I mean, as far as writing a letter to the province about that kind of an issue, if that's ongoing, that's not asking for any costs to be incurred. That's not asking for any extra resources on our end. It's just asking us to maintain our resources here so that we're not losing out on it, because then that does put a strain on the fire department or the other ambulances if they're, under resourced here when being dispatched, and I'm not making back in time. I mean, if our police officers are going to Nanaimo and then not coming back, we'd have a serious issue with that too. So I think that would be a serious thing. Where is it that you hear that from?
Frontline staff. Yeah, it's a life or death issue, actually. But I think speaking to the MLA about it as a first step is probably a good one. And then from there, something a little more public, like a letter, might be the next step.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. More than happy to help. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Chief Norris? Okay, I'd like to have a mover or seconder for the recommendation that the 2025 Parksville Volunteer Fire Department Annual Report be received for information. Moved by Councillor Gore, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you, Council. The next report on the agenda is from the Director of Community Planning and Building regarding a development variance permit application at 245 Roscow Street to consider proceeding with notice for a development variance permit. You've got the information in your packets, Council. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Gower, seconded by Councillor Fraz. Any discussion regarding this variance permit? Go ahead, Councillor Fraz.
Yeah, I'll just mention I'm in support of the variance there too. I think what they're asking for is reasonable, particularly it's not going for the entire fence line there. It's just for a very specific purpose, and seems reasonable request for it.
Thank you for that. Any further comments on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Carries unanimous. The next report on the agenda is from also the Director of Community Planning and Building once again. The development permit application at 1072 Herring-Gull Way to consider issuance of a development permit. A mover and a seconder for the recommendations as noted, please. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. Next report on the agenda is once again the Director of Community Planning and Building, a follow-up. Oh, sorry. We already did that one. We're not going to go that door again. Thank you. Bylaws for final adoption. For a business license amendment bylaw 2026-1550.3, site-specific amendment to facilitate cannabis retail shop relocation. At this point, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to provide comment to council on the proposed bylaw? I can let you know that I spoke to Unity during the intermission. She said that she is unable to attend any further, and she had no further comments as well. So do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation? That business license amendment bylaw 2026-1550.3 be reconsidered and finally adopted, signed by the mayor and the corporate officer, and the corporate seal affixed thereto. A mover or seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Beale. Any further comment? Councillor Grenz, go ahead, sir.
Just like to once again, through you to staff, thank staff for working on this file so quickly and diligently, and doing a good job and making sure that we've dotted the T's. No, check the I's. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further comments? All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Are there any notices of motion at this point? Seeing none. Moving on to liaison reports. Next on the agenda is the council liaison report from Councillor Martin.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the Parksville Museum. They've chosen to do every Thursday night in the month of July, different bands are here supporting them. And it's on the website, but there's country rock, there's Motown, there's Afro jazz. This Thursday we're going, it's Ethan Askey and the Elevator. And so it's 6 to 8 o'clock. It's a fun evening. They have the barbecue fellows there with his hot dogs or whatever it is. People can enjoy the evening. And last Thursday they were there, and Thursday wasn't a great day. We had a wet day on Thursday and they had a great time. So, so I heard. So I think that they've found their niche, and they're, people then get to know about what the museum is. And when they come and they see all the buildings, and they realize it's not just it's an outdoor affair with many buildings that are historical. They've been there over 100 years, from the Greig camp and that sort of thing, because I remember those when I was down at the Greig camp delivering papers. Yeah. So yeah, they're real buildings. So yeah, that lasts that long.
Did you deliver papers down there?
I did. And at Rouse Trevor and all of Parksville.
Wow.
Every summer. Yep. And I know a little bit about Parksville. Yeah.
I thought I recognized you.
You weren't around then, I don't think.
Oh, yes, I was. Yes, I would have been about 5, but I was there. I was there. I went to, yes. As an aside, yes, I was there.
Yeah. What happened was my sisters and I used to bring our bikes on the ferry across. So we'd have our bikes so we could deliver papers. And I knew Mr. Greig, and I knew, George Rath and all those people. So yeah.
Wow, cool.
It was quite a history. And I kind of enjoy a little bit about the museum. I mean, it's historical. I find it interesting. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I got to ride in the ice block delivery truck. When Fred Greig would come into town to pick up ice blocks for the ice boxes outside the cabin.
Right.
Yeah, we all rode in the back on a bale of hay.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
We didn't do that anymore, but yeah. It's good times.
Yeah, it was
Good
good,
times in Parksville.
very innocent, good times.
Well, thanks for that. The museum's a very busy place these days. Yes, thanks for that, Councillor Martin. Any other non-announced liaison reports? Anybody like to bring it up at this time? Councillor Grenz, go ahead.
Thank you. Was on the agenda there, but I thought Mary was as well. Nope, she's frozen.
It must be some blocks of ice I was talking about. Okay, Councillor Grenz, go ahead.
Sure, I'll go ahead, and then if she comes back, then. I did want to provide an update on my attending the 4th World Biodiversity Forum, which was in Davos in June. And I had the privilege of attending with my wife. She was presenting there, and I got to tag along, but I also signed up as a delegate, or as a attendee, I guess is whatever the term is. And because there's lots of interesting subject matter there, I thought the theme this year was leading transformation together, and which spoke to the cross section between the various people that were at this convention, which is scientists, policymakers, indigenous knowledge holders, even artists and business leaders. And from my point of view, is really interesting to try to understand how to get the kind of change we need as regards biodiversity. We're seeing significant biodiversity loss on the planet. And so the question is, okay, we've got all these scientists telling us what's happening. How do we actually address that and turn the tide and to improve biodiversity across the planet? And so there were some very interesting plenaries on this with some different ideas, including the rights of nature as a topic, which was a keynote delivered by a professor at UBC. So I didn't actually have to go that far to hear him, I guess, but he was there and had a very interesting talk on that topic with some exciting changes that are happening in other countries through the court system. And then also the what AI and technology is allowing us to do now, and scientists, not just to be able to understand what's changing, but plan better for ecological restoration work and using AI to predict certain outcomes based on soil conditions and all that sort of thing, but also to track different animals as they migrate. So that was pretty interesting. I should mention I did go on my own dime, so it was not a City of Parksville cost for me to attend, but I think there's some value that I can bring back to the role in not just learning more about what policies and approaches that might work, but also what's going on elsewhere in communities around the world. There were folks there from pretty much every corner of the planet, so quite interesting to interact with those folks. Especially as we internationally try to strive for our 30 by 30 targets. So don't worry, it's a beautiful, beautiful place, Switzerland, but no one needs to worry if they're thinking I might be moving there. I did look into real estate prices there in Davos, and to get a 4-bedroom house would run you the equivalent of $3.3 million. So might be a little out of the price range to move there. Even a little apartment is over $1 million in Canadian. So that's my report.
Those VRBOs and Airbnbs are looking pretty good, right? Yeah, that's probably the extent of it. But thank you very much, Councillor Grenz. It's very informative, and thanks for raising the flag. I'm sure you represented the City of Parksville very well in Dallas, Switzerland. You're probably the first one ever to do that.
I think I might have been from the City of Parksville. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Beal, there you are. You are unfrozen. Very good. Good. You have the floor, Councillor Beal. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to thank Councillor Grenz for reporting on that. And, you know, I hope that there will be more to come. You know, I don't know if you have then some follow up with some of the other attendees and so on, but I guess you got the inside track there with your wife being a presenter. Sounds very interesting. Anyway, I wasn't down as a liaison, but at the same time, I want to let people know about the summer exhibit that's coming to the Arts Council at the MAC. I don't know if anyone around the table has had the opportunity to take a train trip across the country. I have actually done that twice, I guess now. Yes, at least twice. Quite an experience to see the Canadian landscape from the train. Well, Joan Larson, who is a painter of some renown, she has painted the musical ride, the RCMP horses, and so is quite well known for that. But this exhibit has her paintings from a trip across the country that she took with her mother on Via Rail. And the setup in the gallery is really quite something. Now, I do understand that all council members received an invitation to attend the opening reception, which is Saturday, July 11th at 1 p.m. But I also recognize that we get so many emails about so many things that that kind of information might be lost or skipped over. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew that you did have an invitation for that opening reception, July 11th, 1 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. Any other reports at this time? Seeing none, I would ask for a mover and a seconder for us to pursue into section 91C and K of the community charter that council proceed to a closed meeting to consider items related to labor and negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service. I'm a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Wood, second by Councillor Beal. All those in favor?